Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined by our mental health counselor, Monica Garnett, joining us from her own company. It's Garnett Counseling. That's Garnett counseling.com, providing, client-centered, non-judgmental services and care, of course, to each and every person that she works with. She's based out of Los Angeles, California, but also licensed in Reading, Illinois, Nevada. I have here New Jersey, and where else?
Virginia and Illinois.
See, there's so many more on her list. And she's also a coach. She's got a lot going for her. And it's a pleasure to have her back here live on the Zoomcast and podcast. Please introduce yourself to our listeners before we start today's topic.
Thank you. You know what? I think you did a great job of introducing me.
No, you do it better.
Well, thank you. Well, pretty much a mental health counselor, a licensed professional therapist. And I love what I do. I love working with people just from different backgrounds, have experience with substance abuse and military.
Aww.
And so, yeah, that just adds to the greatness of this position. So
got it.
yeah.
And for today, you want to talk about the is it ions, shuns, assumption?
I call them the shuns.
The shuns.
Yes.
Okay, because it was the dash ions or lawns. I wasn't sure what that was. Perception
Absolutely.
and expectation. Walk us through that.
Exactly. Well, I call them the shuns because, assumption,
Got it.
perception, and expectation.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they put a block in between how we perceive people, our relationships, even how we perceive ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. And so I know last time we spoke, we were talking about, I brought up core beliefs, and where they come from. And with core beliefs, just a brief summary. The core beliefs, they're based on, experiences, our perception, well, how we grew up, just the information that we've received. And a lot of times they lock hold when we're in a vulnerable place, whether we're a child, it's a traumatic experience, et cetera. And so a lot of times with those negative core beliefs, we can see them play out in the shuns.
Yep.
And so assumption is a big one. There's that saying, I'm not going to make a out of you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to say, that perception and expectations are close cousins.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, because they can be unhealthy in how we operate.
I never thought of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I was talking to someone last week.
Not me.
And she
right?
kept
No,
not at all.
Like, I'm going to use you as an example without using your name.
Not at all.
Go ahead.
Not at all. But she kept saying, scientific fact says, and you were saying, scientific fact does not say this is your assumption. You're basing it on what you believe, but you have yet to seek out the facts. And I think I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. So I'm just going to pull me back. But just going back, I'll start with assumption first. Again, making it out of you and me. I would say I'm making a donkey out of you and me.
Yeah.
And so it's really just taking information that we receive as fact without proof, without knowing what it really is going on. Mm-hmm. The close cousin perception, I see it this way, I see it that way, and that can be based upon, again, those core beliefs, those negative core beliefs that formed. Mm-hmm. And so with perception, it's really, the definition is regarding or understanding or interpreting something. And I love the word interpreting because sometimes interpretations may not be necessarily true. Mm-hmm. I still keep jumping to the end because I keep talking about the truth, which is the end part.
That's okay.
But and then expectation. What do I think should happen? What are my standards? And I'm using standards a little loosely because standards can be unhealthy as well. But what list of things do I need to look forward to? And expectation can have a positive light. I can hope for things. I can expect for them to come. But when they become unhealthy, then they become unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so a good example for expectation, I'm just going to jump it around a little bit here. Um, the expectation for the supervisor, you need to have a good work ethic. I've been in jobs like
Mm-hmm.
this before.
Yeah.
If anyone else has been.
Uh-huh.
Your work ethic is based upon based upon what you do. But then their expectation may be that you work outside of your work hours. You
Mm-hmm.
work more than 40 hours a week. And then the expectation is you show up and you show up maybe an hour early and then work until 2 hours later. That's unrealistic. It's
Yeah.
mean actually when I say that, but it's unrealistic. It's so unrealistic.
Yeah.
And it's unfair. It's unfair to the supervisor because he's basing his thoughts and what he wants, excuse me, um, on this employee and what he thinks that is a great worth ethic. Whereas the employee is setting him up or setting her up or setting they up for whatever, just for the downfall. It's
Mm-hmm.
extra stress. And then perception. Perception can lead to being judgmental and stereotypes. And it's so sneaky, some people say, so I've heard some people say, well, you know what? I'm not judgmental. My perception is great. I see things as they are. Um, but I've seen, especially living here in California, I've worked with a few children and their parents as well. And
Yeah.
the idea was, homeless people are lazy. And I said, well, you know what? No, not necessarily. No, they're not. I've met quite a few homeless people, and no, that's not the case. And so it's sometimes, when we think of stereotypes and judgment, we're
Yeah.
thinking maybe on a larger scale, but sometimes just bringing it home and looking at what we're seeing. The truth is, sometimes with homeless people, well, a lot of times, it's economics. You know, there's crisis situations that happen, and they can happen just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, assumption. I see this so often, especially in relationships. Um, assuming that the other partner or the other party, excuse me, um, is 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 something that they're not, or doing something that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a great example is, and I've seen this especially with a lot of teenagers, but with adults too. I can't keep them out.
Nope.
Um, but I think about my teenage girls and, oh, she doesn't like me because I saw her facial expression and she made a face when she saw me. And I just say, yeah,
Believe
how
it.
do you know?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know she wasn't thinking about something just completely irrelevant? And a lot of times that happens.
I know we go right to our worst thought, worst insecurity. It's just something human beings do.
Gosh,
We think it's us. Always. Yep.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, it's funny because when I look over it, I can even see sometimes where it shows up for me, you
Yep.
know, especially with my sister. And so she's gonna love that I said that.
Yeah. Aw.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's so easy to see because there have been times when I'll say, uh I'm thinking in my head, she just must be sitting down, just watching TV, remote in one hand, chips in the other. And she's not doing anything. So she should pick up the phone when I'm actually just assuming when she's actually busy running around doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So it can happen just like that. But again, there are a lot of times they're just based on those beautiful core beliefs. And I'm being so sarcastic when I say
Yep.
that.
Aw.
Yeah. And so when they show up, you know, it's what do we do with them?
Yeah.
Because again, they can get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the assumptions can cause problems and, as I was saying earlier, in relationships, at work. Um, and when I say relationships, they don't have to necessarily be romantic relationships. I've seen
Sure.
friendships dissolve over
Yeah.
assumptions, you know, and then perceptions. again, they go back to being judgmental and stereotypical. And then expectations, that's one thing I didn't say. It does not allow people, sometimes it removes flexibility.
Yeah.
And so a person who can be so rigid in their expectation and so can't think of a word, so I just stick with rigid. But they could be so rigid in their expectation that they can't see any other way out. And I think about all of that stress, that you could put on yourself. And again, I'll use myself as an example. It's funny, I use work ethic as an example in here. I didn't even put the two and two together until now. My work ethic used to be super, super duper high because I learned, core beliefs. I learned in high school that, you had to work, 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 work. And so I was
That's a
working in
song.
school.
Work, 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 work. Sorry, I got to. I told with that. I'm like, she could
You
probably
know what?
sing it too.
I should go back to Rihanna and say, hey,
But yeah, but right, but you're true. Go
I
work, work.
lived it.
That was my work ethic too. Go ahead. What happened? What happened to you?
Exactly.
Mental burnout, wear out, like
Oh my gosh, yes.
ditto, ditto.
Oh, and it's so amazing because, at the time, I remember my mother coming and saying, I may have said this before in a different time. She said, as an adult, she said, Monica, where'd you get this from? You just work and you work and you work and you work and you don't take breaks. Where is this coming from? And I thought about it and I said, it comes from you.
Yes. Yeah, we talked a little about this. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. The
yeah,
same way. Never sit down. We're always standing up on the go. I don't sit and eat. I go to
absolutely.
how people sit, people nap. I'm like, how
How do
the
you
heck do you
do
do
that?
that? There's
Exactly.
extremes and everything. There's also a medium ground, which I'm way above. And I'm like you. Uh-huh.
Exactly. And so I had to think about that, and I don't think she realized it, but at the time when I identified, this came from you, not that I was blaming her, but this is where this core belief began. And so the core belief was, I'm not productive unless I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I set that high expectation for myself. And so one of the things to address, these shuns, the expectation, the assumption, and the perception is one, recognize what they are and where they come from.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it, how do you know where you want to go
Mm-hmm.
until you identify it? And with that, I wanted to go to the point of, I don't want this anymore. It was stressful. It was so stressful
Mm-hmm.
not being able to take a break, not giving myself permission is another shun, but that's another day. But not to give myself permission to take that break. So I had to identify again, where did this come from? And then another thing is this really realistic? I look at everyone around me and they're taking their breaks. I didn't take breaks at lunch. I didn't take breaks for my break time. Work in the morning, leave late, work on the weekends, all that other good stuff. And so, is this realistic? No, it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not realistic. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
So then what are the facts? And I always go back to what are the facts, but with expectation, what are the facts and what I can do to be healthy?
Mm-hmm.
And so one, it was, you know what, if I'm going to change this, I'm not just going to make a big change all of a sudden. I'm just going to gradually do it. And so I found the facts. The facts, one, is not healthy. So what am I
Yeah.
going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with my 5-minute breaks first, my little pockets of peace. I may stand outside and look around, look at the flowers. I love flowers. I have a lot of flowers just because of that. Um, I might get up, listen to music, but I cannot be sitting at my desk for those 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then gradually, I'll increase them, even especially at lunch. And then after I'm off of work, I have to have a sudden stop. No more dedicating that time that is not accounted for. And so having that sudden stop and then having a crossover from work to home, and being that I work at home, sometimes it's not as easy. So I make sure I have a shift. Even though I haven't gone anywhere, I'll still jump up. I may take a shower just to tell myself, hey, we're switching over the day. Or go back outside. I love going outside, as you can probably tell. But going back outside, just changing shifts. And so giving myself, like I said, that permission to do that. Excuse me. The allergies have finally got hold of me. So they're like, yay. And then with assumption, how do we address that? How do I stop assuming? Well, one, just like I told the person I was speaking to last week, that is not factual. You keep saying scientific evidence says. There is no scientific evidence that says that your sister doesn't like you. There is no scientific evidence that said that your husband is angry. Ask, get the facts, find out from the source, and then go from there. And another one is letting someone know what you're thinking, what your thought process is like, kind of sort of like an accountability person. And so they can kind of check you on it, hey, I think you're going down that road again. And you're like, oh, you know what? I am. I'm assuming. And then something I already addressed, which is identify the thinking patterns and where they may have originated. Where do these core beliefs come from? What did they originate? Because a lot of times they have originated from somewhere, whether it's childhood or whether I was in a vulnerable place. And asking questions, I'm going to just go back to that, because sometimes we can be so, and I say we, and I may be speaking generally, I do that from time to time, but we can be so caught up in the assumption being the fact, we don't ask questions. And so sometimes if you're not asking the other person a question, ask yourself that question. Is this factual? What does this mean? And then sometimes we'll surprise ourselves with the answers when we take that time. And then perception, one of the things that I look at is becoming empathetic, getting to know people, getting to understand them. Sometimes it's harder for some than others, because the idea of being empathetic is we have to get to know people. We have to step outside of ourselves and form maybe not relationships, but conversations. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just find information about what we are perceiving, what we're looking at. I would love to sit here and say, we all need to hold hands as a world, but realistically, some people are not in that place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Monica is on a roll. I just need to remind everyone who we're talking to, because people can tune in during and they're like, okay, wow, we're listening, but who is this woman chatting like this? I'm empathizing, I'm relating. Monica Garnett, guys, garnettcounseling.com. How else can we reach you?
You can reach me at 888-427-6006. And then garnettcounseling.com, GarnettCounseling.com. And Facebook is Garnett Counseling, and Instagram is Garnett_counseling.
Perfect. Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue the conversation. Wow.
All right.
Where
you can tell
we?
this is
keep going. Just go.
No, this is one of my favorites because, sometimes just in listening, when just taking the time to listen to other people, you can kind of hear them pop up and they just show up. And then they're supported by, just what we choose to see. Excuse me. Trying my hardest not to lose my voice. But yeah, they could be so ingrained, but they're not impossible to remove. And I think that's one of the things that I've come across, where there have been some who say, well, you know what? This is what I think. I think what I think. I am who I am, you know. And I love with that. It doesn't matter what age, you can challenge these things. You don't have to be stuck in the I won't say negative, I'll call it unhealthy thinking. And seeing, you
Okay.
know. So it's pretty amazing. That's why I call them, can you get an idea why I call them the
Yeah.
shuns now? Because they kick out a lot of information,
Mm-hmm.
especially factual
Yeah.
information, you know. And the facts, they're so strong because, you know, going to that person who's talking about scientific evidence. What, okay, so the facts may not be scientific
Yeah.
evidence. However, what are they? Because they're the truth,
Yeah.
you know. And I don't know about anyone else, but if I had to choose scientific, if I had to look for scientific evidence each time, I would run out of time. So I just need
Yeah.
to know what the basic facts are,
Yeah.
you know. So, oh yeah.
Aw.
But yeah, it's interesting how they pop up and how they get in the way and they're everywhere, you know,
Yeah.
work, home, outside of home, just everywhere. And it makes me wonder how many opinions are floating around there as fact
That.
based upon these three things,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So so yeah, absolutely.
How do let me just ask you a question because you're full
Hmm.
of joy. How can we all wake up and bring joy to our lives like you? I feel it from you. I see it from you. And I feel I'm joyful
You
too.
know,
But some days I'm not with
yeah,
my kids, but really.
you know, um, I just find it happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny because I had talked to someone before too, because I love to laugh as well. I love to laugh. And I think that that feeds into that. And I remember I watched a comedian, I watched his interview. He comes from a big comedic family. And he said he finds the funny in everything.
Yeah.
Well, I find the happiness. I look at the little things, you know, and just look at things to make me smile,
Mm,
even when I'm not feeling like it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a song by Uncle Cracker. It's called Smile. I can't sing, but it's like you make me smile. Da na na
You
da
know,
na na na. Google Smile by Uncle
I
Cracker.
surely
It's a
will.
country. He's more like country, but he's not
Yeah.
super country, but it's just a great song. Makes me
Yeah.
smile every day.
No, I love Uncle Cracker. I
Oh,
love all
you know who
types
he
of
is. Okay,
music.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
I know who he
sure.
is. Yeah.
Okay, good, 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 good. Yay.
Although I
Aw.
haven't heard well, I'll get off on a tangent, so I won't. But,
Oh, well, to sum up today,
but
we
yeah.
still got 2 minutes left. Monica, how did you want to end off?
Okay, sure. Assumptions, expectations, and perceptions. Those close cousins, the shuns. I almost I love to joke as well. I was gonna say, stay away from them, everyone. But no, realistically, let's see how you can determine if I'm thinking what my thinking is factual or is it based upon these three things? Because if it's based upon these three things, there's so many things, there's so many positive and healthy, so much healthy information that I'm not letting seep through,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So they're the close cousins. And again, in identifying them, you can ask yourself, is what I'm thinking right? Is it correct? You know, not so much again, not what the scientific evidence is, but what are the true facts? You know, is this healthy or is it unrealistic? Or is this healthy? You know, not just that it's benefiting me to make it healthy, because there's some people who say, oh, well, it's healthy because it's benefiting me. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's also the main thing is it factual act
Wow.
good gracious, I can't speak. Is it factual
Mm-hmm.
and going from there? So
Oh.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But no, I do enjoy talking about this too, because like I said, they pop up so easy,
Oh. Well, thank
you
you for
know.
being here. If someone does want to reach out to you, and I know you offer a free initial consultation, it can't hurt, guys.
Absolutely.
Tell us how we could do so.
GarnettCounseling.com, GarnettCoun, no, I can't spell, COUNSELING.com. And so again, GarnettCounseling.com, and it's 888-427-6006. and Garnett Counseling on Facebook, and Garnett_counseling on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you here, and that
Thank you.
amazing energy. Smile by Uncle Crackers, the theme song of the day. When I have a break later, I'm going to play that. Play it, play it, play it. All right. Thank you, Monica. Have a fantastic day. And to all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. We'll be back. And I'm on vacation next week, so I don't think I'm going to see you unless there's someone might be filling in. So I don't know how it works. So good luck. They're awesome if it's probably Steve. If not, I'll see you when I get back. Thank you.
Sounds like a plan.
Bye, Monica.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.